Hello everybody, my name is Avery Charles. I'm the Legislative Secretary for you right now for the University of Toledo Student Government 56th session. So I know there's a lot of new members in here and some members who may be not too familiar with how to write legislation, so we're just going to go over that today. So it starts off with your title. You want to make sure that is bolded, and then whether it's a resolution, a bill, or a referendum, and then the date that it will be brought up in the Senate meeting, and then also to include the title in there. So you want to make sure it is bolded and underlined, and whether it's a resolution to maybe add more recycling stations around campus, a bill to create an ad hoc committee for whatever purpose you may need, make sure that goes in the title. And then your committee sponsor should be bolded as well, and then whatever committee decided to sponsor it, and any senators or general members of the student government organization who decided to help out and write this should be included and bolded as well. And then we're going to have a line here for the Speaker of the Senate, Speaker of the Senate's name. Same thing with President as well. So the date table, this line is only necessary for bills and referendums because they do take multiple readings. If you are writing a resolution, excuse me, then you will not need to include that date tabled. And then after that, your date adopted and date vetoed. And then you're going to start with your whereas statements. So whereas, comma, and write your support for it. And then to summarize, when you're ready to close your legislation, you start off with a therefore, comma, let it be resolved, comma, and then let it further be resolved, comma, as well as including the vote and the day it was passed. So now we'll look at some actual legislation here. So a resolution, this was back last year. As you can see, the title is clearly labeled, bolded and underlined. Who we have the sponsor, which committee is sponsoring, as well as the author of the legislation. They're also including the Speaker of the Senate and the President. Date adopted, date vetoed. So it's important when you are writing your legislation that your spacing is also 1.5 spaces. And then we're going to go with some whereas statements. So most students like to start off their legislation where the University of Toledo Student Government, here in UTSG, so that way they can abbreviate student government throughout their legislation. And the same thing with University of Toledo, they abbreviate it with UToledo. Make sure you clearly specify that. And then whenever you are finished with the statement, make sure you end it with a comma and then write and. Then you can move on to your next statement that follows. Also, as you can see here, so we have a reference. So if you are pulling specific data or information from a site, make sure that you mark it up in your legislation, and then you'll put it below in your folder, or in your footer, excuse me. So that way people who are reading the legislation can check the link to make sure that your facts match it. And when you are writing, you want to start off every line. So after you finish a line, you want to make sure you tab on your second line to create some separation, so that way it's not all blurred and mixed together. It makes it easier for people to read. And other than that, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Just make sure that all of your legislation is also going to be in the font Garamond size 11, and make sure up top here when you do write your legislation that it is all centered for the resolution and the title. We're also going to have these examples up on our website, so you can always check those to reference. And if you ever have any questions about writing legislation, or maybe how to format things, anything like that, you can always reach out to me. So thank you for your time.